Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Steve. Today I'm joined by Dr. Megan Connell and Dr. Anthony Bean as well. How are you folks doing today?
Wonderful. Great to be here.
I
Very,
feel
very good.
I feel like I'm slowly but surely working my way through all the gaming therapy people. I'm
We're
collecting them
collective.
like Pokemon.
Yes.
You got to collect them all little by little.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if you want to start with some introductions and kind of what you do, we'll start with you, Megan.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dr. Megan Connell. I'm a psychologist in private practice, physically in Charlotte, North Carolina, but practicing virtually in North Carolina, Washington, Virginia. And as soon as I can finish up my psych pack, a bunch of other states as well. I'm also a therapeutic game master, so I use Dungeons and Dragons as a therapy tool. All my game groups are focused on women and girls, helping to find our voice through play. And then I also help to co-author and co-create all the D&D therapy or the therapeutic game master training that we do through Leyline Geek Therapeutics. I'm also the co-founder of Geeks Like Us, where I am the dungeon master for Clinical Role. I'm the host of a podcast called Brain Noodles, and I do a bunch of other stuff because I don't need sleep. That's a weird thing.
It's definitely for the weak.
Oh no, it's for the highly intelligent, the people who know how to have boundaries and say no.
Anthony, the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a licensed psychologist over here in Texas and physically in Texas. I practice primarily in Texas. I can practice in a couple other states based on board rules, depending upon who's coming on through. I also run Geek Therapeutics, which is the CE program for therapists to learn more about geek culture, geek cultural artifacts, and a whole bunch of other stuff to kind of better their practice. We certify geek therapists, geek specialists, and our new program that came out this year was the Therapeutic Game Master program, which has been phenomenal and really, really well received by a lot of people. We're filling up cohort 7 right now.
Wow.
I know it's been a lot, and I also run Leyline Publishing, where we have pretty much all of our materials that we create for therapeutic dungeon mastering or other stuff for tools to use in the therapy room for geeks. And heck, it's a lot of fun.
So who is that stuff for? Who is the therapeutic DM or GM? Is that for the layperson? Is that for a professional?
Megan, you
It's
want to take that one
yeah,
first?
that's more it's more geared towards the professional because it to become like a good therapeutic game master, it's this intersection of three skill sets. One of them being somebody who can play and have fun, which is really important, and oftentimes that gets eliminated when you build in number two, which is somebody who is a behavioral expert, so has some degree of higher education training, whether that be social work, counseling, psychology. And then number three is an expert at running games. And so when those three circles can all intersect, that's where you get the therapeutic game master. People who are lay people and not therapists and want to understand and learn more about the use of psychology in games certainly can, but please do not try to therapize your friends in your games. That is not good, and that can
Thank you for
cause a lot
that.
of damage.
It never ends well when you try
No.
to do that.
We've often get different questions, and we usually anything that seems like a professional should be involved. Like we'll give our opinions, but we start with don't take any of our advice. Please talk to a professional. You listen to us, you probably will go insane and die. Um, and and just I think people mean well, but then I see them like giving advice like maybe you should take some psychology classes and work that into your gaming. I was like, for story, maybe. For mental health, never.
Mm-mm. No,
That's
like
what you folks are for.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, no, if you're wanting to, beef up your skills as a game master and your storytelling and building of characters, go into like writing classes, like learn about story elements, learn about like what types. I'm a really, really big fan of overly sarcastic productions and their trope talks and learning those things like learning that kind of stuff because there's so much crossover between game mastering and literature and writing a good campaign and having good in-depth npcs. It's very similar to writing characters in a story. um, so that would be where I'd encourage people to go.
You know, could you both maybe give some advice on time management? Because it seems like you're doing a lot of things.
Schedules are the biggest thing that you can do for yourself. For me specifically, since I run the Telos project, is I have to manage not my just my schedule, but other people's as well. And so if I know exactly what I have to do in these hour blocks, then I can get it done. Now, if I have a free hour block, I then will even go and do further scheduling within that further hour with like 20 minutes I'm going to spend on this, 30 minutes on this, 10 minutes break. But it's always scheduling is the key to success on that.
Oh, never mind. That just sounded like another job.
Well, I mean, there's online things to make it a lot easier. Obviously, Habitica is a good one, but there's a whole bunch of other things that you can do that just requires quick scribbling.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of checklists, and then also recognizing that you can get more done in 10 minutes than you think. You know, a lot of times we'll go, oh, I only have 10 minutes. I don't want to start anything, but it's like, start it, and you actually might be surprised at how much you can achieve in just 10 minutes.
Yeah. Also, I just feel like it's just good because it like builds the habit, right, of doing it, even if it is for amount of time that someone thinks is inconsequential. But like otherwise, you wouldn't have done anything anyway. So it adds up over time.
It does. Takes a lot of time and effort to get there, but I mean, once you have that flow, it's a whole different ball game.
So when you have other professionals coming to you guys, you know, in order to introduce the stuff into the therapy, do you find you're getting people that are already kind of nerdy and geeky and they just want to incorporate it, or more like the neophyte that maybe wants to use it as a tool to connect with, you know, with the people that they're serving better?
So for this one, we actually have a full range of that. So we have a bunch of nerdy people who were like, I want to learn how to utilize my culture in a therapeutic practice. But we also have a lot of people that are coming out of the woodwork from that. They're like, I haven't been in this culture. I don't understand what's going on. I don't know how to use video games or tabletop RPGs or something else. To really hone in on my skills, and I want to learn. And so it's really kind of both spectrums that are coming on in, which is great because I think I'm thinking of everyone that's in the programs that are coming on through. I mean, we have such a wide range, all the way from us as younger nerds, geeks, all the way up to older ones that are like, I thought that this was bad and I wanted to learn how to make sure I could stop it from happening. But you guys have opened my eyes to being able to know how to use this appropriately and therapeutically. And they're like, this is game changing for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was wondering how many people you end up sucking in, you know, that Matrix moment, you know, once you take the pill, there's no going back.
Yeah. Well, and so much of it too is just expectation management, helping people understand what they're really talking about. I remember when a panel I was on for one of the PAXs, one of the panel, I wish I could accurately cite my source, remember which panelist was saying this, but they were talking about how they were giving a demonstration on video games and how video games can be helpful to educators. And they were showing Minecraft. And one of the teachers in the crowd said, "Why does your gun look so funny when looking at the screen?" And he's like, "There's no guns in Minecraft." Like, well, what's that on screen? It's like, "Oh, it's my hand. It's the character's hand." And like this person just had this mind blowing, like they had no idea that that there were games where violence wasn't the centerpiece. And so like so much of this has been about educating people and bringing them on board, you know, like when we think about Dungeons and Dragons, you know, there's a lot of thought of like the satanic panic of the 80s. There's an article from 4 or 5 years ago now that was a survey of Canadian psychiatrists, and it was still like a third of them still believed that that was a thing, that Dungeons and Dragons led people to, you know, worship Satan.
That's scary. They're supposed to be educated.
They are. I mean, that was kind of one of the things that when we had to partner with TCU to bring Dungeons and Dragons to their campus, they were very interested. The counseling center was, but we had to go and really kind of break that type of mentality with some of the other people in the higher ups, and having them come on in and be a part of the system that we were creating was eye-opening, I think, to them. And so we started off with like one group, and now it's five a semester that are going on. And they just, it takes, you have to be open to a lot of different things, but they've also seen the massive benefits of doing this type of therapeutic work, because they're all counselors there, and being able to really hone in on what the needs are. It's just remarkable to see them change their mentality, and they're like, yeah, let's do this. And they have students from all different programs in there. It's just amazing to watch them play.
So you've both been doing this for quite some time now. Um, how much longer do you think before it becomes more like a mainstream therapy practice?
I think we're well on our way there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful within the next 10 years. I mean, we've
Okay.
got we're getting to do some talks at the American Psychological Association this year, which is exciting. And people are starting to open up and not see it as such of a fringe thing, and understanding that there's some power in there. But the old guard is strong. So
Yeah, I'm kind of curious of what if you each want to speak to like what that journey has been for you. What's it been like? At the beginning, was it kind of looked like quackery, or has it been embraced?
You want to start, Megan?
I'll let you start this one.
Oh boy. Yeah. So the way that you just phrased it is exactly the way that it's always been when I've experienced utilizing this. The main mentality is, I started in video games, and the main mentality has always been violence equals aggression. And that means that if you play video games, you're going to be violent. We should be scared of you. All of my personal research and stuff that I've done on that, and stuff that I've published, has always proven the opposite, that that's not necessarily the case. And that has been one of the big hallmarks of breaking that stereotype of the quackery, as we kind of like put it already. The concept of these games can be very helpful, can be very beneficial if you know how to use them appropriately. Now, are there going to be clinicians out there trying to use them inappropriately? Oh yeah. That's going to happen no matter what we do. There's no way around that. People talking about games and they've never played them, talking about a mechanic in a game, they don't really quite understand what's happening in there, or using something where, like, I'm going to play video games with my client with no real focus. That's the danger side of it. That's the side that people will say that's the quackery side of it. But if you go through training and you come up with a plan, you go and understand how we can use stuff. Like, I can use StarCraft for money management and building certain fund goals for people, because I know StarCraft really, really well. I used to compete in that. And so I can build an entire world specifically for the client in front of me, teach them about money management skills and how do I do stuff. And then I can drop in problems for them, Zerg rushes, stuff like that, in order to make sure that they know that they always have to keep on their toes. Life sometimes throws something a little bit difficult at them, and they have to manage it. And yes, there's going to be a resource dip, but you can always make it back. And so that's just like one simple way that can be, games themselves can be very beneficial, but you really, really need to have a good understanding of the mechanics of the game in order to do that. And I think that's where what we're trying to really kind of hone in on and focus all these trainings on is like, how can we do that?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny, because as soon as you started mentioning the money management with StarCraft, and then I was like, and then you hit them with the Zergling Rush. And isn't life always just trying to hit us with a Zergling Rush?
Yeah, it's about surviving that type of stuff. There's always an expense somewhere that's going to come on up, and that's why we have to learn about certain tactics to make sure that we're prepared for them. And honestly, I think a lot of video gamers don't even realize that the games themselves are teaching them through the rules, the boundaries of the game. And if you are adept enough at, like, oh, you use this type of character to play this type of way, I can pull the mechanics out specifically of the style that you play and apply them to life goals, to individual aspects of life, to what they're kind of going through, to really hone in on what we need to focus on and how we do that. And it makes sense to them. And because they've played the game, they understand the mechanic. It's really about, we're just framing it a little bit differently, because sometimes life sucks.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say for me, my journey was a little bit, different to Tony's, because like I started off as a military psychologist, and so like, um, you will be put into the mold and you must fit the mold. But way before then, like I had been hiding my geekdom for a very long time. I start like in grad school, like I was very into video games and gaming, but I hid it so much because it was not professional, and I didn't feel like I could wear my flag, that geek flag high. And is actually really interesting. When I was getting ready to go into private practice, I went to a seminar that actually talked about the practice I'm a part of now as being a practice that embraced geekiness. And I was like, oh my God, I need to work there. And now I do. um, but like
Mission
that,
accomplished.
yes, yeah, yeah. And but that idea of like, oh, I can actually let this these geeky passions and interests that I have out and show them to the world. Um, but like it also paralleled a lot of like what I learned in grad school. My program is highly focused on diversity and cultural issues, and that idea of cultural identity as being needing to be at the center of therapy. And like it was so inauthentic to have this whole thing that was super duper organically important to me and not bringing that into the space of therapy. And then finding out from so many of my clients that that was just such a big part of their identity, whether, like soldiers who are trading Pokemon cards, in Iraq, to, setting up LAN parties in their choose, just understanding like how to i- connect that big part of them, because so many people hid that. And like once you can connect with a person on that cultural level and really, see into the world and understand their world, even if you're not necessarily a part of it, at least having the lingo of it can really help. And it broadens the scope so much.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a ton of people that like um started gaming in the military. So I'm kind of a little bit surprised. Also, it might be a generational thing as well. Um when they're maybe it's not so much Gen X, but afterwards that it's been more popular. But definitely like people playing games, and also like the companies sending their games and stuff overseas. So
Mhm.
I'm surprised you didn't encounter more of it.
Well, I was an officer because I was I was
Uh,
medical, and
yeah,
so that side's very different, unfortunately.
I can imagine it's not cool in the officer's tent to throw dice.
I
Yeah.
I accidentally ran, and I say accidentally, I actually accidentally ran a World of Warcraft guild called Death Before Dishonor, and we were very PvP heavy. And it turns out that most of them that joined that guild were military, and they're like, we're Marines, so we're gonna make this happen. And we actually created this entire like cohesive structure by pure accident. And to watch them kind of bond in when I stopped playing, I had to pass it on to someone. I have no clue if they're even still playing, but to see them be able to utilize that combat specialty in a different way, to be able to feel like they are connecting with people who are here in the States versus over in a different country, was very important to them, to make sure that they felt like they were still connected.
So how do you guys actually find time to game in addition to everything else you do?
You make it.
Yep.
Yeah, like gaming used to be the thing that I could just do when I was bored or looking for something to do, but now like I have a weekly Sunday D&D game that is scheduled. That time is sacred for me. Before we went live, we were chatting that like I'm very deliberately trying to not work on the weekends that much anymore. So like this past weekend, I played a ton of Pokemon Snap, which is super fun. If you haven't started playing it,
Is it better
highly
than the
rec-
64 version?
I never played the 64 version.
Oh, I still
So
have it. It's so good. It's so much
yeah,
fun.
it's so much fun though. It is the Pokemon game that I think I hate the idea of making your Pokemon fight each other. So
It is kind of twisted when you think about it
yeah,
and break it down.
yeah, I'm gonna capture this cute little animal and I'm gonna make it fight till it faints.
But only after stuffing it in this tiny space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're not writing for our psychology of Pokemon. No.
I totally missed the Pokemon craze, I guess. I don't know if it was, just because of, the age thing. But, I remember it being a thing for like my youngest brother, than me. So yeah, I never really got into it. Although I did see like my wife and kids get into it again with the Pokemon Go thing that lasted like a week or so.
Mm-hmm. It wears out a lot better if you actually have a routine already scheduled to do walking and stuff like that, because then it's
Yeah.
just an added fun bonus.
Mhm.
I wonder, are people still doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Pokemon Go is an awesome therapy tool for getting people to get motivated to get out and to go do things. And now like 9X made there's a Harry Potter one. Didn't they make a Witcher one, or Witcher one's coming out, or
They're trying to make one, is what I heard.
yeah. Yeah. So there's a bunch of other ones, but like they all have that same kind of core mechanic that you have to physically go to locations to gather resources and to resupply yourself, and then the more you walk, the more bonuses you get.
It's a very like geeky and nerdy themed geocaching.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also like the gyms that utilize games in the like a video game situation to help my clients kind of get a little bit more involved, and they're becoming more known, but they're
Mhm.
still too far and few in between. But like if you're going to try to play tic-tac-toe with someone who again on the other side of this screen that is beating it and working harder than you or faster than you, then it's going to continue to pump your own set as well.
Do you guys have like favored tools to use, or is it strictly depending on what your patient needs?
I kind of use whatever the person in front of me, the client is specifically needing, and it just tends to work out better that way. If I instead of just kind of forcing them to play a game because I think it's going to be
Mhm.
beneficial, but if I know what they like and what they can and how we can use it, then it kind of brings up a new way. And if I don't, and if I have never heard of it, it's always about the curiosity factor of making sure you ask the questions like, what about this game? Tell me about it. Tell me about how it plays. What happens if you explode? What happens if you run out of ammo? What happens if you die? Do you respawn? And those types of questions are really helpful to kind of help generate an idea and then map it onto a different type of game that I've played and kind of ask questions around that.
Now, I imagine any kind of therapy doesn't work very well unless the person involved wants to participate, right? Like you kind of need them to be involved. Having done both traditional, methods of therapy and then doing it, the geeky and nerdy side of things, you find that breaks down those barriers faster.
I'm
It, it
inclined
re-
to say, yeah.
yeah, it really can. When like people realize they're not going to be pathologized for their interests, like I it it's super fun to me when I'm meeting teenagers who I'm doing therapy with for the first time, and their parents are in the room. And like one of my early questions is, "What are you into? What are your hobbies? What are your fandoms?" And like I'll have people oftentimes like, "Well, gaming." I say, "Oh, cool. What types of games?" And like, "Oh, just some Steam games." Like, "Oh, nice. I have a huge Steam library. Tell me." And they're kind of like, "Oh, wait," and we can actually have a conversation about it. And it's so surprising to me because what you can see here, like this is my office. This is the Dungeons and Dragons art wall, but then I've got like I have a Marvel wall. I've got like so many fandoms represented in my office, and even then, like they're still like, "Oh wait, you legitimately know about this stuff." And the parents are kind of like weirded out, and they're like, "Well, isn't it a problem that they play games?" Like, no, not necessarily. Like,
Yeah.
if it's stopping them from doing other things, then yeah. But if they're it's a healthy coping mechanism, and if it's a way for them to connect with their peers, like no, it's great.
Do you guys just like find yourselves having to like prove your cred?
With parents who
No,
I
no,
get
no. With
emails.
with the patients.
Sometimes, and sometimes they pull one over on you, which is really funny and actually really therapeutically good because if they feel like they've pulled
Mhm.
one over on a therapist, they're like,
Oh,
ha, 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 I have some power, which is good. But I usually
Mhm.
you have to prove what I've noticed is specifically with video games, you have to prove your worth to the parents to know that it's going to be beneficial. Like they are super hesitant and I get emails all the time. I want to have my kids see you. I want to do this. They're not allowed to play video games. How can we work on this? I don't want them playing video games. And I'm usually responding with a very polite email back saying, hey, if we're going to work on this, he's going to play video games. He or she has to know what's going to happen. And we need to form boundaries. And I usually hear zilch back from them because they're kind of stuck sometimes in their own own
Mhm.
background. But I've also worked with ABA therapists, kids before. And if you know anything about ABA therapists, they are very like, this is it. This is what I do. This is very structured on that type of stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah, we're going to do a whole bunch of unstructured play with your kid and kind of see where it goes. And it blows their mind to see it happen that way, because they've been trained for so long in one way that it's hard for them to think outside of it.
Yeah. Well,
So
and I think like to kind of build on what Tony's saying with the parents too is like, it- like thinking to my own struggle of like, oh, professionals don't game. Um,
yeah.
that a lot of parents kind of have that, I think too, of like, oh, if I want my kid to be successful, they can't play. And like, that's just so harmful. It's so, like, let your kids play, let them have fun.
Brian Smith says, haha, hook up the NES doc. Let's see how good you really are at duck hunt.
I'm terrible at Duck Hunt, but I'll have so much fun playing it.
You know what the most disappointing thing was is when you have to discover that you have to buy an old tube TV in order to play Duck Hunt now is the
Yeah.
Oh
most
no.
saddest thing ever. Because I have a whole NES collection at home, and I was like, cool, my new TV, it's gonna be great. Nope, too fast, and so I always miss it now. And I'm like, oh well, someday I'll get a better lower grade TV.
Yeah, we have to move backwards.
Yeah.
That's funny. You ever have gamer parents bring their kids to you and be like, "Can you fix my kid? They're not a gamer."
Oh, not yet.
That's rare, actually. I don't think. No, it's usually the kids. The parents don't understand why the kid does certain stuff or plays games or watches anime, manga, or reads manga, stuff
Mhm.
like that, and that they're like, I don't understand this. I'm like, well, maybe you should watch some stuff with them. Maybe you should read some of that. Maybe ask those questions.
Yeah. Yeah. My message to parents a lot of times is sort of like, it's interesting to see how they take it because very often I, where I work, there's a lot of high achieving students. Like the high schools here are incredible, but also like pressure cookers for stress and anxiety. And the parents kind of fall into this of like, oh, my kid needs to compete with all these other kids, and like trying to give parents permission to let their kids fail, and understand too that there's no like good safe thing, and like having to that the world is not this black and white piece, and helping them open their eyes to that, and it can be really challenging.
We see that when so I teach at two colleges too, and I see that a lot of like I get emails on Sundays every week saying, hey, I forgot to do my thing. Hey, I forgot to take this quiz. I forgot to do all this. Can you reopen it for me? And the answer is no. Like the way I set up my classes is you can do everything in this class from day one except for the midterm and the final. That's it. You can do all your discussion posts. You can do all your quizzes, and you can take the quizzes as many times as you need. That's the way I have it set up because one, we're in distance learning, and two, sometimes kids don't learn the same way as everyone else, and they need more time or more attempts to really hone in on the understanding of it, and that's okay. But if you come to me on Sunday and say I didn't do this thing right here and I need more time, or I forgot, I'm really sorry. Like there's going to be a consequence here. Like
Yeah.
that's how you have to learn. Like jobs in life, they're not going to cater to like, oh, I forgot to do this, and I know you have this deadline. That can really screw over a lot of stuff. And so we really have to, I think, have our kids fail. I agree with Megan wholeheartedly. I actually encourage people to fail.
Hmm.
Yeah, when you mentioned like the amount of pressure and stress that kids are under, it made me think about like I worked at a gym in an a very affluent neighborhood, and I was working with these two women, and like their kids were in swim, and I asked them about, well, when do they just swim for fun? And you would have thought I just sprouted six heads or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's I don't know. So, the parents get psychotic with that stuff.
Competitiveness is like
Hmm.
it. I'll be the first to admit, like I have a major competitive streak. It's so deeply ingrained, it'll never go away. But there's also a wonderful thing about watching my 4.5-year-old son fail at something, break down, come over, ask for comfort, and then ask, how can we do this better? Because that means he's trying to critically think. He's trying to do something a little bit different. And I'm still there as a supporting element, where my wife is still there as a supporting element. And that is really where I think the aspect of learning kind of comes in, because he doesn't do a lot of that anymore. Now he's learning all these funny moves, and he's like, I'm going to trick you, Dad. And he wouldn't have that gumption if I just let him win the whole time.
Yeah.
You have to beat them down when they're young.
I'm waiting for Mario Kart. Mario Kart's the one I'm waiting for.
Oh, that was so much fun.
I think, I feel that in my soul, but the kids doing it to us. Rainbow Road.
Mm-hmm.
What I love is like I'll play Mario Kart with my younger kids, and then when my older one's out of the house now, but my son will play, and he spends so much time customizing his car to get the best wheels and the best build and everything like that.
Yeah.
I just go and I'm like, this one looks fun. I'm going to ride a teddy bear this time, and I usually beat him.
Yeah, those stats on Mario Kart 8 aren't really great. I mean, your best one is speed, is honestly is that, and then to me, and then everything else doesn't matter.
So Brian Smith in the chat, thoughts on screen time? Seems to be a big love-hate relationship with anything related to a screen with parents, but valuable for kids working things out in game space.
I think it depends. You have to kind of understand the temperament of your kiddos, and what I've seen with sorry, my brain just went, and all this other stuff too. So sorry, refocus the thoughts here. One of the things I do for my younger kiddos is an hour at a time, unless like they're watching a movie or something. When they're playing a game or something, it's like after about 55 to 60 minutes, they start turning into little jerks, is something that I've noticed. And we need a good 2-hour break where we go do something else, and we can come back to it. So it's a kind of understanding like that heartbeat of doing things like, okay, we're getting overstimulated. Let's take a break, and we can do this again for a little while. I think the other big thing with screens is understanding that screen time and like video games, mobile games, phones, social media, all of that stuff, it knows how to hit your dopamine pathway in your brain, which is that reward and pleasure center like nothing else. And kids, their prefrontal cortex that gives them that ability to delay gratification isn't fully developed. We've kind of figured out that that's not done until like 24 to 26 now. And so trying to make rules and guidelines that are set up to help that developing brain, like in my household, electronics don't go upstairs. They do not go into the bedrooms at all. I know that like with distance learning and stuff, that can be a little different. But it's that idea of like your bedroom needs to be the place where you relax and you sleep. It does not need to be the place where you're overly stimulated. And so helping kids create those spaces where they've got those lines, and that can help out with screen time incredibly well.
I'm 100% agreeing with you, Megan. Is my 4.5-year-old, if he's watching the movie, we're fine with that. That's not an issue. But if he's playing a game or something, like he doesn't want to nap, he wants to come down and play, we're like, cool, you can do that, but you're gonna have a time limit for that. And then after that, you got to go figure out something else to do. That's really what kind of comes in. And I think that what we try to do as parents is build emotional maturity in our kids, and the ability to say, I've kind of had enough, like I'm good for the moment. And by showing them, the kids learn best from watching what we do as parents. So if we're always on our phones, if we're always watching something, if we're not engaging in something on the outside, it doesn't always work out really well. So a wonderful example is my son. He is phenomenal. I love him to death, and he has started getting up a little bit earlier than normal, and he'll go sit on my wife's bike that she does, and he'll do some mock bike, and he's like, Daddy, I'm working out. This is what mommy does. This is what I have to do every morning. And I'm like, hey man, that's cool. If that's what you want to do, just make sure you wear shoes so those pedals don't hurt your feet. And that's what he does. And he asks, like, can we go outside? Can we go and do this? Can we go to a park? Can we have friends over? In people that we know that are, one, vaccinated, two, staying safe, and things that are going on, we have them come over and do that. But it's really definitely been, and this is what we focus on even clinically with other people, is what's the emotional maturity of the kid? Can they handle an hour? Is it an hour and a half? What is their limits? Because one of the things is what we would want to do, if they want to let's say, play a little bit more and they've completed their homework, their schoolwork, they're interacting with the family, everything's going great in all these different environments. What is the limit that they can handle on this other stuff? What can we do to make sure that they feel like they're getting enough time? Because as we know, some video games autosaves have become much more popular, and that's fantastic for gaming reasons. But like if you're playing the old Legend of Zelda, good luck, man. You got to beat that all in one go. There's no way to do that. And I think that's the biggest aspect is we have to ask as parents, like, what's the emotional maturity? What have I been teaching them? How can I instill these boundaries? There was a study back in early 2010, I think, that talked about the idea of alcoholism in the United States and how we as a culture actually don't always do a great job of teaching and showing our kids what does it mean to responsibly drink. And so when they go to college, they just binge drink and just all this alcoholism and alcoholic behaviors. And some of those things some kids can't get out of that. And that becomes their life. Over in Ireland, they teach actually like what is social drinking, what is appropriate to do, and they have appropriate behaviors before they go off to college. Just basically say, "Hey, man, you're being a dick. Don't be a dick. You drank a little too much. We're going to take this away from you until you can modulate and moderate your own self." And I think that is really kind of what we are missing over here in the U.S. as a culture.
There's nothing as Irish as having a class on how to drink.
It's true. But I think too, like one of the things that's really important with the teenagers, especially, is kind of giving them enough rope to hang themselves. Like we did this with my son, and he knows I talk about this all the time. But like he did amazing in school, and so like he got straight A's, did wonderful, and he was allowed to start having technology in his room to include his phone. And then he got a failing grade in the class, and so then all the technology had to come away, and he had to kind of freak out. It's like, yeah, I feel like you're punishing me. I was like, no, baseline is no technology in the rooms. You got above the baseline because you were doing well, and now we're returning to baseline because like that wasn't succeeding for you. And anytime he's talking about doing stuff, I was like, okay, remember what happened the last time you thought you could handle something. And like he's gotten a lot better. And like one of the things he says is like, I'm not ready to have my phone in my room overnight. I understand that. I'd like to have it during the day so I can have private conversations with my friends and stuff, which we're willing to do. Mostly because he's got his grades back up again. But it's that thing of like, by having that thing where we can let out the rules and see how you do while you're still at home, rather than him just going off to college and all of a sudden now he has to regulate all this stuff and understand how to do that. He's going to have years and years of practice beforehand. So I think that's really important. It's difficult because it involves more work on the parent's side, but
I mean, I have a personal story for that'll reinforce everything you just said. So this is personal to me because this is what happened to me. So I've always been someone who needs a lot going on in order to feel fulfillment and make sure that I do get everything done. So when I entered my undergrad, I completely, everything just like got switched because my parents would kick me off games. They wouldn't allow us to do certain stuff. You know, they didn't allow that enough rope to hang myself to fail in certain cases. And so when I got to my first semester of college, I ended up having a GPA of 0.69 by the end of it. And I was on probation for my first semester. And you're talking to a clinical psychologist. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology here. So I had to work very hard to reacclimate and rework my entire schedule because I had never had that much freedom. And it totally took over everything that was going on. But I ended up graduating because I retook all the classes with a 3.9. So, I mean, that's the basics, but I wouldn't expect every kid to be able to do that. And I think it's wrong if we would expect it. And it's a lot easier. And I would think I would have had a lot easier time if I had just had a little bit more of some appropriate boundaries and enough, like Megan just said, baseline. All right, we're going back to this. This is what kind of happens.
Yeah, I mean, as a parent, it's tough trying to figure out the right range between helicopter and free range. And like in my house, it's in very like I'm kind of like whatever, and my wife was very clingy, and don't let them go around the block; they'll get kidnapped. And I'm like, have you been with our kids for 5 minutes? They'll bring them back. It's fine. But yeah, so it's weird compared to like when I was a kid. Like you would go out, your parents would be like, go outside and play, and we would go outside and I'll hear the lock click behind me. come back at lunchtime.
I'm thirsty. Drink from the hose. It's fine.
Yep. And you're a boy, so you're like, if you got to go to the bathroom, go pee on a tree. So, yeah. So, parenting has changed over the years quite a bit.
Well, and I think it's worth saying too to the parents, like the expectations for parents have changed so much. I mean, I think y'all are of a similar vintage to me, which when I was growing up, a phrase I remember hearing a lot from other parents talking about their teenage kids was, they'll figure it out eventually. I don't know when I've heard another parent say that now. Like, this idea is like that parents have to figure it out for their kids so that their kids can go out and be productive members of society. Like, we don't let kids fail. And I know in my town, like, there were several parents who loved their kids to death, loved them so much, and just watched them blow their lives up and kind of were like, all right, are you done doing that now? Or are you going to do that a few more times? And that was the thing of like, that's your life. I've taught you better, but you chose this. So this is what we have. And that there was no judgment from the other parents on it. It was just a lot of, yeah, they'll figure it out. So-and-so did their best, and this kiddo will eventually figure that out. I think
we have a Bluey episode.
That is like, speaks to my childhood so much. And then, my son now, he'll be 21 this year. But like, I used to make fun of my mother-in-law all the time. Like, you going to go to college with him? What are you going to do? Like, because you'd always try and do everything for him. So it's like, at some point they're going to have to figure it out, like you said. And it's so much better if they do it now, while the bumpers are in the lane, while the guardrails are on, while the training wheels are here. So if they fall, they don't fall that far, and they'll get up and be fine. But
yeah. Well, and the cost of failure goes up so much. Like Tony, what you're saying, you had to retake a bunch of classes at school, which is several $1,000s.
Yep.
Like, if you had been allowed to fail in high school, where that's free, like, that's still painful. It's not fun. The financial burden, though, goes down significantly.
Oh, massively. Yeah. It cost me like an extra 10 grand to make that up overall. Luckily, I paid it all off by now, but that was just because of other factors. That wasn't like anything. Yeah. But yeah, it is very expensive to do that.
Yeah. So are you guys gaming with your kids? You're playing tabletop gaming, I mean.
Yeah, we've been doing our D&D campaigns kind of on hiatus. So I do a very dumbed down, no, not dumbed down, but it's still full D&D, but I've simplified it a lot for my kiddos, because they're in kindergarten and first grade, my younger ones. My older one doesn't have time to game with us as much anymore, but we play a lot of board games. Now I love playing with my younger kids. They're so creative with the stuff that they come up with and the adventures that they go on. But I have to give a plug for a board game that I've been playing recently with my little kids. My cousin turned me onto this. It's called Zombie Kids. It's an evolution game, so as you play, the rules get a little bit more complicated, and the mechanic is super simple and fun. Like, I actually want to play it with adults, but it is 2 thumbs up. I highly recommend it.
That is like the creepiest sounding thing anyway.
Well, it's the zombies are attacking, and you are kids trying to defend your school.
Yeah. Well, that's better than the way I read that.
Yeah.
Dead Space style.
Yeah.
Well, the other night I just watched Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies.
Oh.
And there was like, well, spoilers, but that movie's old at this point, I guess. There was like an infant zombie, and I'm like, that is terrifying.
That's terrifying.
I mean, infants are terrifying enough, but make them a zombie?
Whole nother level.
Yeah, next level. So are there a lot of pets involved? I find like smaller kids always want the pets. Ted runs what he calls his kids game, and my son was involved for a little while, and that's all they have is just like a traveling menagerie at this point.
Yeah.
Like, one fireball could fix that.
Well, it's actually really interesting because my youngest is the Young Adventurers D&D books, like she sleeps with those in her bed and goes to sleep looking at the pictures from those every night, which does my heart so good. But she has come up with an elven druid, and her elven druid has an owl pet, and she talks all about that stuff. My other daughter, though, we have the Curse of Strahd board game, or not the Curse of Strahd, sorry, the Drizzt board game, and she just loves the Drider. And so her character is a Drider fighter. That's what she wants. Have spider body and go out and fight things.
Goth child in the making. Gotcha.
I'd be very proud of that too.
One of the Kickstarters I backed before I actually met my wife, it was like tabletop or something like that. It's called Tap Top now. And it's like a giant screen that's like this big, and it's really cool, Megan. I'm gonna send you a picture of it.
Yeah.
And it has settlers on it in a couple other games, and they're consistently updating it. But finally, after like 7 to 8 years, I finally got it, and I backed this thing so long ago. And it finally came in. And there's this really fun game on it that you're just connecting subway lines, and you start off in like the 1920s and in this thing, and you have to connect them, and then there's like things like you can only cross one time on a over a water bed or something like that. And so it's really, really neat. Holiday's my wife, got sucked into it, and before we knew it was like 1 a.m, and we're like, crap.
That's why I don't play video games anymore, to be honest with you. I am not good with that. I had stopped playing Cold Turkey for a while, and then I downloaded like City of Heroes and for a weekend, because I was like, no, this can't stay on my computer because I won't accomplish anything else. I was like, I stayed up to 4 a.m. every single night just playing this dumb game.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why games like one of my favorites is Stardew Valley are really awesome, because there's this natural, like, you don't save until your character goes to bed. But then that's a really great place to stop. And it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to play through a day in Stardew Valley.
So it's kind of built in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The games that have those built-in mechanics are the best ones to use, and I think are great time managements.
That was one of the reasons I kind of like League of Legends. Like the community isn't particularly great, but like the games would end. Right, they had had a finite ending, which made it easier for me to stop playing and do something else. But I have a bit of a addictive personality, so I've just given up.
I can't tell from your background at all.
Yeah.
Well, most of that is Ted's addictive personality. We have different addictions. His runs towards plastic and collecting things. So. Mine tends to be more towards like I guess experiences and doing things. So that's why I get sucked into those video games, and I'm like, I can't get out of here. I feel trapped. I feel like I'm in the negative zone. Or is it the null zone from Superman?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you did mention you are getting some gaming in, and you said your Sunday game, is that a home game, a non-streamed game?
Non-streamed game. Just like last night, our DM we're playing Vampire right now, so our storyteller was too tired to manage. We're trying to do a heist. So he's like, I cannot do a heist tonight. So we played like Jackbox, and we played Dungeon Mayhem, which is always fun. But yeah, that time is very sacred to me, and it's just play. There's nothing productive in that play. That is the unproductive play time that I have.
Except beating everybody else.
Yeah, no, that's super important. I love Dungeon Mayhem.
Oh my gosh.
Our holiday tradition used to be Munchkin, and Dungeon Mayhem easily replaced it.
Except if you get the monster expansion, those monsters are crazily overpowered compared to the rest of the characters. Like, it's either you play with that or you don't add it on in, because I mean, Cinderpuff, man, you get him up and running, and like it's game over for everybody. Like it's just unfair.
I don't know. I still think the wizard's still pretty strong. Like the wizard can flip it around with one card.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always trying to get your health. You're trying to get your health down so you can use that vampiric touch and swap
the
authority.
paladin pretty much heals every every single turn.
Yep.
So those ones are pretty good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And like I said, we used to play Munchkin during the holidays, but Munchkin's fun, but then can also like borderline on tedious because it's like you get towards the end of the game and then everyone gangs up on the person that's going to win, and then like it has this like Monopoly effect where it's like it's fun, but then it won't end, so then it starts losing its fun.
Yeah.
So what about you, Anthony? What are you playing these days?
Right now, what I have been playing is Mario 64. Actually, the from All Stars is I actually work out when my son grabs a controller and pretends to play with me. And I'll do.
You younger brothered him. You
Yeah,
fiend.
I did. He's actually using an Xbox controller too, which makes it even funnier. Yeah, so he's playing that and he really likes it. And he's like, "Go after that star." I'm like, "All right." Like I've beaten Mario 64 with all 120 stars before. Takes a while, but he's really into that, and plus beating Bowser.
Poor Bowser. Which Nintendo 64 you said you're playing?
I'm playing on the Switch, so the controllers are a little bit weird. I have it for the 64. I just don't have it hooked up to the TV right now.
Yeah,
Mario Sunshine on that All Stars is terrible mechanics. Oh my god, it is so hard to beat it.
I'm so out of the loop with that stuff. So my daughter uses a Switch and she likes to play the dance games, and then my son is like PC. You know, he's all PC.
I got both.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Just Dance. It's really fun it's another fun way to just bond with my kiddos, and because they haven't gotten to do dance. They both love dancing and they haven't gotten to do dance class because of COVID. And so this was a good way to.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because my daughter has dance at high school and like has to do it, you know, basically in our family room via Zoom, which is really tough because they're trying to coordinate a dance and Zoom has lag. So
it makes it difficult.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, you know, in our house, like we are 50%. Well, I would say 75% vaccinated because just both of the kids have one more shot to do, and you know, so hopefully we'll all be getting to some normalcy. And I imagine, you know, next year they'll be back in the full swing for school.
Mm-hmm.
So, what kind of challenges has that added towards, you know, doing therapy and gaming? If you're not, you know, doing things in person, or are you doing some things in person?
I mean, for me, we're completely telehealth right now, and so I like to use Roblox a lot because of the game engines, and I've picked very specific games in there, whether I need to have them work on mindfulness techniques. So there's a mining game that I use, or if I have to have them work on rapid changing of their tactics, I do a tower defense.
I love tower defense.
Oh, it's so much fun. I'm so close to getting something in there. I'm so excited. The gunner.
It's amazing. Yeah, I'm back about a third face-to-face. I'm actually in my office today. But I'm still seeing people virtually. The switch to virtual was really nice for the individual therapy. For the gaming aspect, it's been a little harder because I use more board games with my clients than physical games. And so like Tabletop Simulator is amazing and wonderful. However, the other person needs to own it. And so like that's a little bit of a challenge. So I have been playing a little bit more Minecraft with my clients as a way to connect. But again, like there's some challenges there. So yeah, my groups are all virtual right now. I actually only have one group, and that's definitely been a switch. I don't mind it so much, but I can't have as many people, and like some of the social aspects that I think are really important in the game, I don't feel like we're getting as often with virtual. You're definitely getting other stuff virtually, which is cool. But yeah, once it's safe to have more face-to-face games and stuff, I'm gonna be doing that again.
I imagine too, if you're using more physical games too, there's a tactile component to that that you just can't get over the internet.
The dice towers.
Yes.
That the kids will make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Yeah, well, even with like board games and stuff, there's just something about touching things.
Yeah.
It helps engage the senses as well.
Well, even like with Dungeon Mayhem, like getting to physically put it, like when you get that time where you have like a two lightning bolt card followed by something in a single lightning bolt, something in a single lightning bolt, oh, and another double lightning bolt, and
Yeah, building those chains.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
for
that.
sure.
Getting to lay those down physically is so much more fun and satisfying.
Well, yeah, it's funny because like when I tried getting my daughter into playing D&D, we're using the spell cards, and like I had built her character after the Monster High dolls, right? Because that's what she was into at the time. And like the only thing she really liked was casting the spells. But when she would cast them, she would play the spell card like it was like a Pokemon card or something, which she's
Nice.
never played, so it was really weird. But like that seemed to be like the highlight for her. But yeah, so like the idea of laying down the cards, it definitely feels good, even if you don't know why or what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
It's totally satisfying. So, you've also been doing Clinical Role for a while.
Yeah, we've been on since November of 2017. So almost 4 years now. And we're playing tonight. It's 9 o'clock on Geeks Like Us's Twitch channel. 9 o'clock Eastern, that is. Yeah, we're on the final arc. They've figured out that Orcus is trying to make a big push to come onto the Prime Materials. They're trying to figure out how to stop that and gather their allies. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
How much is left to that campaign?
With my players, probably a couple of years.
That's one heck of a final arc.
I adore my players so much, and they entertain me and are just amazing. But they are definitely like, sometimes it's herding cats. It's oftentimes the game is like the one fun thing that they're doing for themselves, and so like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to begrudge them deciding to spend an hour developing an app for a dating app for sentient weapons. That happened.
I'm not surprised on any level.
Yeah. So,
Well, we're going through the Curse of Strahd right now, and we're in Ravenloft in the crypts, and there's like 40 crypts, and we're like, we could go and like finish this adventure, but we're like, nah, we're going to open every single one of these crypts.
It's like
So
in Skyrim, you go into the dwarven mines and the areas like that. You got to go into every area, like every door that gets open. Like you've got to see what's behind it.
mhm.
besides, there might be good stuff. So Brian wants to know any games or genres that would help somebody with ADHD.
Ooh. Hold on. I had a list of them at one point. Now I'm trying to remember what was on my list.
I would say I like things that require time management specifically. Is if a game requires it, then it likely would be beneficial to kind of help manage a lot of the mechanisms of one, staying focused, but making sure that you're thinking, critically thinking. So tower defense, I love that one, because that you can if you're playing a two player on that one, you can actually like really upgrade and start having the baddies come on through really fast, and you're like, oh crap, how are we going to handle this? What's going to happen? And I really like that one, that aspect, because it works really well with my kiddos that I treat.
Yeah. And I think like games too that delay gratification can be really helpful as well. Like this is an old game that I still sometimes play, Pocket Frogs. It's a very calming game. You breed frogs and you get pretty colors and pretty designs. But like there's a lot of resource management in it, and also like just waiting. There's a lot of like waiting for your frogs to mature and then doing what you need to do. So like I think games like that kind of help encourage those skills that maybe don't come as naturally with that level of neurodiversity.
You just mentioning that sounded painful to me. Maybe I have ADHD. Well, when I was a kid, none of that stuff really got diagnosed. Like, I mean, our school did have like a child study team, which, it's funny because the same people that kind of had me as a kid ended up with my kids later. but I don't actually remember them really doing anything with those kids other than like separating them from the rest of the kids.
Yeah.
And you know, some of us made it back into general population, and others never did. But
I think there's a lot of good stuff that can be done based on engagement of what's happening with the kiddos. And so if there's something that gets a kiddo more engaged, then likely it can be utilized as a tool for at least for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say to like seeing like my my daughter has a IEP program, and like what they do now is so much different than back then. Like they actually do stuff now, as opposed to before. Like I said, they just kind of shunted you away from the rest of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they give them the personalized thing, and we meet with them every year to check in to see how things are going. So it is awesome to see how far things have come, as well as to see what fine folks like yourselves are doing to actually make it more interesting and more engaging for people that need the help. So we are right at the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out?
Game on.
Yeah. Life is short, play games.
Yeah, pretty much.
As always, links are in the description. Go click away. You said tonight, Clinical Role?
Yep, Clinical Role, 9 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/geeks like us. The E's in geeks are 3s because the other spelling was taken.
as is the way of the internet. So with that, until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.